canned. I was flipping through and I happened to catch a story here about this dude that got fired for being too fat. You've heard these stories before about can we discriminate against fat people? And this guy ended up getting fired. He was 680 pounds. He got canned. And then he sued his company. He started working at 450 pounds, gained more than 200 pounds while he was working there. And 200 pounds is a hell of a lot. So they said, no, you can't do it. You are out of here. You're too fat. And then he sued him. And then they ended up settling. So I had to ask the question. I go, they fired him for being too fat, which it seems like you ought to be able to do because that's not one of those race, creed, religion, sex questions about non-discrimination. So aren't you allowed to fire somebody for being fat? But then he ended up getting a settlement check for $55,000. I thought I would ask Pasha. I tell you to do it all the time to ask Pasha. Go to askpasha.com. So I thought I'd ask Pasha. Hey, Pasha.
Hey, Mara, how you doing?
I'm curious about this because I put on a few pounds since I started working in San Diego. So I'm wondering about this whole being fired for being too fat. And we were kicking the story around too with I was talking to LaDonna about this earlier today about being fired for being too fat. Is that something a company can do? I mean, it's not laid out in the discrimination law, is it?
Well, if you want to really protect yourself, you need to move back to Michigan because it's one of the only states, it's actually the only state in the country that has some kind of blanket protection for overweight people.
There are a lot of fat people there.
Yeah, it's one of the fattest states in the nation.
Yeah.
My understanding. But, there's a misconception in California that, you can't fire or discriminate for any reason but for work performance. But actually, appearance discrimination is generally permissible.
Does that have to be in the company handbook or anything? Because I know that for some appearances they say, here's your dress code. If you don't follow the dress code, that's grounds for termination. But there's nothing in a handbook that says you have to keep your BMI under a certain level, is there?
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be in a handbook per se. But there's a big but exception here, pardon the pun, okay, is that obesity, which I think is a little bit different than just being merely overweight, may be connected to an underlying disorder or what the ADA says as a disability. And so,
wow,
that's right. So I think you get the picture here. So the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC,
yeah,
they actually define obesity to be an impairment under the ADA.
So I could be fired for being chubby, but if I'm obese, then they couldn't fire me because that would be a medical condition.
Now, just let me give my quick disclaimer here. I swear I need a recording or something. But, this is
this is not legal advice, right?
Yeah, but consult an attorney for your specific situation. But that's what it seems like this law is heading towards. And let me just say this. I mentioned the law in Michigan.
Yeah.
There's also a couple cities in California, Santa Cruz and San Francisco, that is outlining weight discrimination. There's even a council on size and weight discrimination that is trying to make weight discrimination illegal.
Okay.
And majority of people, actually, polls have shown that actually are advocating this kind of protection. So, that you mentioned this overweight versus obesity. I've seen cases go both ways. And if you're going to be firing somebody on that basis, I definitely seek legal advice first. It really depends upon the specific situation.
I don't know why obesity is offensive or why people end up getting fired for being too fat, other than just the boss is an a-hole. But what about some of these other things then? If somebody is heavy, I mean, they oftentimes we know some people that are heavy have loud breathing problems. Can you fire somebody for breathing too loudly?
Well, let me go back to there are reasons to discriminate for weight. If you think about it, a lot of these employees are on group health insurance, so that can affect health insurance costs.
Oh, yeah.
You can, healthy people are frankly just more productive, at least from the employer's perspective. Okay. And, a company appearance, too. There's been cases, whether it is Hooters or it is the flight attendants that want to project a certain image for their company. So there is a practical reason, whether good or bad or right or wrong, that employers have administered weight discrimination.
So what you're telling me is we don't want to go into a Hooters in Michigan.
Well, Hooters is they're in their own category, and the reason is because, like everything we talk about on the show, there's always exceptions.
Right.
And there's something called a bona fide occupational qualification. That's basically an acronym at BFOQ is how we reference it in legal terms.
Okay.
But basically what that says is Hooters, their concept is that they're a female sex appeal company. That's their concept. That's what they're selling. And so, therefore, in order to actually provide the business purpose of the restaurant itself is that they have to hire women waitresses that have certain standards and so forth. And that's how they've used to actually get away from some of these discrimination.
So there are exemptions then from those discrimination rules that are out there.
Yeah,
based on your business type.
They're very narrowly tailored, and I think even in the Hooters example, they've gone back and forth with some cases. A lot of times they've been settled out, and some of this area of law hasn't been settled all the way as well.
All right, so there's an awful lot of questions here, obviously, and that's why if you've got a business or you've got questions, and like Pasha said, talk to an attorney before you do anything silly, and obviously I recommend Pasha. Pasha, thanks for your time again, man. I appreciate this. Thanks, dude. Obviously, this is a complicated issue whenever you're talking about employment, termination, all that kind of stuff, so askpasha.com.